I've ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said all about the things?
Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One time.
What up? Nordo in for PA on a beautiful Monday, 9 to noon. PA some vocal maintenance. He'll return later this week. Brett Blakemore produces. And kicking things off with the Timber Tech set list, 11 a.m. hour, we will hear from Lavelle E. Neal III, Star Tribune columnist. At some point, I'm hoping 10, but we're just working schedules out. Parker Fox is going to be in studio. And right around the corner, around 9:20, we're going to chat with Christopher Hine, who covers the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, of course, that's going to be a big factor today, putting teams to bed as we kick things off with the weekend wrap. The weekend wrap, 9 to noon. Plenty of howl today. And plenty of you today, if so inclined. 64686, Bradshaw and Bryan, KFAN text line. The Howl will lose by 30. Bright lights, Friday night. Target Center, season on the line. And they shoot 38% from the field, look completely discombobulated. Stephon Castle gets loose. And the series and the season is now over. Talkbacks, free iHeartRadio app. We're going to be hitting those hard throughout the show this morning. What do you think? What's next on the Howl as we put them to bed? But the weekend wrap is actually going to start elsewhere as the Twins cap off the Brewers series yesterday. Christian Yelich makes it 3-3 in the top of the fifth, but Ryan Jeffers offers his rebuttal in the bottom of the inning.
As Jeffers slams one high and deep to left field, back it goes, and that is gone. On a breaking ball, Ryan Jeffers with his 7th home run, and the Twins answer back and lead 4-3.
Weekend wrap brought to you by Hoffman Heating and Cooling. Does indeed start off with the baseball team. They avoid the sweep. The team's 5 games under 500, but they're just not going away. And you heard Ryan Jeffers there. I think that's his 7th home run of the season. Him and Buxton, your 2 best offensive players. And follow Buxton's season if you can. But Ryan Jeffers has been terrific at the plate in his 36 games thus far. And Austin Martin, when he plays, when he gets regular at bats, hitting over 300. There are so many cool little bits about this team, despite the fact that they're struggling. And the snarkiness, the sarcastic nature maybe of how we handle the baseball team at times, and frustration with the ownership and $2 beer night before the first pitch. All of those things, this team just won't go away. And up next, Houston Astros in town. Now, thankfully, you're a Braves fan, aren't you, Brett?
I am. It's been a good year.
And we're happy for you. Houston's in town. They have this this cat, and I'm going to probably pronounce his name incorrectly. I think it's Arrighetti. But he is 5-1, 1.5 ERA. We're going to miss him this series, thankfully. We're sweating rehab starts for Taj Bradley right now, and they're just rolling out future Cy Young Award winners down in Texas. And we are not going to see him this series. But at Target Field, starting, I think it's today, the Minnesota Twins hosting the Astros for the next 3. Again, team won't go away. Team's frustrating. You're down on the owners, $2 beers before first pitch, all of that included. Many good things to sink your teeth into with the Minnesota Twins, including Buxton's season, including Ryan Jeffers. You heard the home run highlight, and many other things. So the Minnesota Twins avoiding the sweep on to Houston. To the PGA Championship yesterday. What a putt from Aaron Rai.
Aaron Rai has just hit a beautiful birdie putt on 17. He drains it from 50 feet. Aaron Rai is unstoppable at Aronimink. He is 9 under par.
Aaron Rai wins his first major 9 under in the PGA tournament yesterday at Aronimink in Pennsylvania. And, man, it felt like watching the final round that there were 10, 12 guys in it. And it was impressive in fairness. I have no background information on Aaron Rai. I think he's an Englishman who lives now in the United States. Not familiar with him. He's like 30. And it's his first big tournament win. That's cool for him. But he just wouldn't go away. I think he stuck around par on Thursday and then just only continued to get better into the weekend. 1 under, then 3 under, shot a 5 under yesterday, including that 50-foot putt. I mean, what an unbelievable moment for him. John Rahm, I think he was 6 under. He finished second. A lot of guys just couldn't putt. Where you're hearing 50-footers from Aaron Rai, I'm watching guys lipping out from 3-4 feet yesterday throughout the day. So as he was just steady Eddie, finding a birdie here and there, nobody else could find their way to get close. So congratulations to Aaron Rai in the PGA Championship trophy hoisting event. Jason Zucker scored.
Evans almost stripped him of the puck. Now the Sabres got a man in front. Zucker scores! Power play goal, and it's a must for Zucker. And the Sabres are back within 1.
Jason Zucker, a familiar, friendly face. He made it 3-2 in favor of the Canadiens. They rip off a bunch of goal. The Sabres do, and find their way to an 8-3 victory. This is the weekend wrap brought to you by Hoffman Heating and Cooling. And we have a Game 7 tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Game 7, Sabres and Canadiens in Buffalo, in northern New York, for everything on the line. Did I get this right? The Carolina Hurricanes are currently waiting to find out who wins tonight, right?
That is correct.
And then I don't have an exact date, but Zach said in the hallway May 21st would be Game 1.
That's what I got.
Regardless of the result. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the Carolina Hurricanes, and they've earned it, by the way. They've earned it by sweeping their first 2 series opponents. They have not. They will have not played a game of hockey since May 9th.
That's correct.
12 days off. You can go to Cabo. I mean, basically, that's an
when's training camp start?
That's an entire camp.
Yeah.
Wow. So Carolina Hurricanes awaiting the winner of tonight's game. With these Sabres, it's impressive in some respects, like their ability. They've gotten big wins, it feels like, throughout the postseason so far, more so on the road than they have in front of their home faithful. What have you seen, Brett, from Buffalo in terms of their ability to get out tonight? And is this now just because we're destitute and our teams are dead and we're going to put the howl to bed here throughout the day today? Is that the team that we root for? Because of Zucker and Big Rig and Alex Tuck and a team that is just back in the postseason for the first time in a decade plus and now on the doorstep of a conference final?
It certainly is the team with the most local connections, I think, unless I'm missing someone on the Montreal side. But this is a series where those guys, remember down the stretch of the Wild season, well, home ice doesn't really matter. You should be resting guys. This would be a series they would point to. 4 of these games, the road team wins.
Yeah.
And I would say 3 of those games, the road team dominated. The Canadiens won 5-1 game 2. 8-3 was this game 6 in favor. And there was only, I looked at it, I was like, surely there's going to be a bunch of empty netters at the end of that. Only 1. They actually added 1 on top of that for the 8th goal. So I think it's really anyone's game. Is the road team the favorite? Probably. But after that, getting stomped on your home ice, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think, to answer your question, the Sabres, I think, have more local angles.
Yeah, just let's go Sabres, and then you're on your own against these Hurricanes who have been sitting on a beach for a week, and they're just, can you guys get this over with? I almost forgot how to play. I've been hanging out so long, and that series will start later this week. Answer me this before we move on. Am I being petty by being annoyed that, okay, so Wild beat Dallas in 6. I think that was that a Thursday or a Friday night game? I think I think it was a Thursday.
April 30th was when they won, so that would be a Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday, when was game 1 of the Avalanche series?
May 3rd, that's a Sunday. So you got Friday, Saturday, fly out Saturday.
Fly out Saturday, play game 1 on Sunday, correct? Yep. Okay. And there's an emotional aspect to the series against Dallas, and we're banged up, right? I mean, we heard last week that Eriksson Ek was trying to skate with a broken heel. It just wasn't going to work. Brodin was probably never going to come back, so this doesn't matter. I get that. But am I being petty at all by looking now at the Vegas Golden Knights and Avalanche? They begin on Wednesday. So last week, Wednesday night, season's on the line. We're up 3-0. We know what happened. It's ridiculous and inexplicable. Still can't believe it. No! That's Wednesday night. Vegas Golden Knights dispatch of the Ducks on a Thursday. They get 6 days off. Am I being petty? I know it's by TV. I know that there are factors that play into this. I get it. That just kind of irritated me when I saw when game 1 was. Why didn't we get a little bit of rest?
We could have used a little more time for Julie Eriksson-Ek's heel to reform. Or maybe Brodin's toe to reform. Probably wasn't going to happen anyways.
It was never going to come back.
But
I don't know.
The NHL machine screwing the Wild is nothing new, and it's still frustrating every time that it happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're being screwed. I don't think there's a boogeyman. My team doesn't come out on the right side of those sorts of things very often. Mm-hmm. And, this weekend, I don't know why. I was plenty irritated and way overoccupied with that. But now we're on the Sabres tonight. We're on the Sabres. It's Game 7. Beat the Canadiens and move on to face your fate with the Carolina Hurricanes, who were just flying and looked unfreaking beatable, hence the fact that they started the postseason 8-0. Weekend wrap brought to you by Hoffman Heating and Cooling. So all that's set in the NHL, and, of course, the Cavs just crushed Detroit in a Game 7, so now they're moving on this week to start their series against the Knicks. And I believe Game 1 is tonight, so kind of a double feature. You get to watch Sabres and Canadiens, and you get to watch Spurs and OKC because, well, Friday night, stuff like this happened.
Luke Cornett swings the elbows through. That nearly took out Nasri. Castle pops on a 3 and hits again. A left side 3, 3 feet beyond the arc. It's up to 28 points. Stefan Castle. Here's Ant in the lane, lobs it to the corner, and airmailed Mike Conley.
Perfect highlight. Oh, my goodness. 139-109, season over.
Jalen Clark's going to dribble it out here. The horn sounds, and that will do it. The second-seeded Spurs, who won 62 games in the regular season, they dispatched the Timberwolves in 6 games, winning Game 6 here at Target Center, 139-109. Tied for the second biggest win over the Timberwolves in their postseason franchise history.
He had to compose himself.
The Spurs have 3 of the top 6 biggest losses the Wolves have had in their postseason's history.
Oh, I loved getting the opportunity to listen to Alan Horton, listen to Jim Pete throughout the season and these postseason games, and he had to compose himself as he just looked down at his sheet of paper, look at the stats. Statsy, Dave Handelin, feeding him intel. And he just had to look down and go, okay, Wolves losing 6, and 3 of their 4 losses in this series were by 30, like the other night, were by 29, 38 in Game 2. Half of the series, they were completely non-competitive. They did not have a pulse. They did not have a freaking chance. And now, summertime. Big swings. What are your thoughts on the coach? Hey, Julius Randle. That didn't look good. So all those conversations will be starting, I suppose they started late Friday night into Saturday morning. You heard some exit interviews. You heard some press conference related audio over the weekend. And that's where we're going to leave this. The weekend wrap is brought to you by Hoffman Heating and Cooling. Thank you so much to Hoffman for bringing us the weekend wrap on Monday mornings, 9 to noon. And that jumps us back into the TimberTech set list because that Howell-related highlight, the low lights that you heard, that's going to dominate the conversation today, 9 to noon. Starting with Christopher Hine, who covers the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's going to join me on the hotline around the corner. Terrific piece that he wrote. And I want to break that down and just get his perspective as the Wolves enter the offseason. And that'll parlay into your talkbacks, your texts. The frustrating nature of that loss combined with, is there any realism to say, without DiVincenzo, we didn't have all our dogs? This was inevitable. Can you lean on that? Can you go back even farther the way that Christopher Hine did? The standpoint that one decision and the lack of ability to find a true point guard for this team made this a star-crossed, ill-fated operation from the very beginning. Can you look at it like that? What is next? What is next for you as a fan? What's your grocery list? What's your checklist look like for the Minnesota Timberwolves as they enter the offseason, the draft later this month, free agency, a lot of moves for Tim Connolly? What did he try to do or not get accomplished at the deadline that you would like to see happen this summer? Free talkback machine, free iHeartRadio app. Hit that microphone. Give us up to your best 30 seconds. Text line always in play, 64686. And we'll continue to roll through those as we go from Christopher Hine. Eventually we'll get to Parker Fox. Eventually Lavelli Neal III. And we will exercise these hardwood-related demons on a Monday morning, 9 to noon. Thank you, TimberTech, TimberTech.com for the daily set list. Thank you, Brett Blakemore, for producing. Thank you for listening to 9 to noon. And as a small token of our appreciation, well, the corporate-mandated cash contest is here, isn't it?
That's right, the cash thing. The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest at KFAN.com. And the keyword is, because it is fun. The keyword is fun. KFAN.com. Keyword fun.
You're listening to Eric Nordquist in for Paul Allen on The Fan.
Before your next trip, visit Luggage World for the largest selection of luggage and travel accessories.
The Fan welcomes some great shows to Treasure Island in this year, including Gabriel Iglesias, July 31st, Joe Bonamassa, August 15th, Snoop Dogg, September 5th. Get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Clark's going to dribble it out here. The horn sounds, and that will do it. The second-seeded Spurs, who won 62 games in the regular season, they dispatched the Timberwolves in 6 games, winning Game 6 here at Target Center, 139 to 109. Time for the second.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. Yeah, very unceremonious end, we'll say it, to the 2025-26 campaign for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Next up, Christopher Hine. Chris covers the Minnesota Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. Follow him on X at Christopher Hine. Terrific piece, just kind of in summation and digging back, looking forward via the Star Tribune. I encourage you to head to the website and check that out. But he joins me now. How you doing this morning, Chris?
I'm good. How you guys doing today?
Doing very well, and really appreciate your time this morning. Anything surprise you about the way things ended on Friday night? Chance to extend it. It's bright lights. We had dug so deeply into this series, and we knew what the Wolves were lacking in certain spots. But in the end, you're shooting 38%. Spurs continued kind of just really unmitigated in anything they wanted to do. Castle has his night, of course, just a part of the story. But what did you think about the end of the series and the season for the How on Friday?
Yeah, I was worried that a night like that was going to happen because the last 2 years when they were eliminated, they went out hard, I guess you could say. They fell behind by at least 30 points in each of those 2 games, and I thought that that could happen in Game 6. But on the flip side, I was thinking, well, could this also be a Denver situation from 2 years ago where they come out down 3-2 in a series and really turn on the Jets? And it turned out to be the former. I just think throughout the course of the series, the Spurs just established that they were the better team.
Yeah.
They really did. Whether you want to look at it from a talent standpoint in the roster, whether you want to talk about, the mental side of things, the emotional side of things, as much as the Wolves were trying to provoke Victor Wembanyama outside of Game 4, once he came back in the series, he was a force. Stephon Castle, 21 years old, and that dude played, I thought, older than his years. I was really impressed with the way he played in that series. And that's a scary thought when you look at the Spurs and it's Wemby and it's Castle and it's Harper for the foreseeable future in the Western Conference. How are you going to stack up against it if they're already this good? So, that's where I think the Wolves are at right now as a franchise. You lost to the Thunder last year. You lost to the Spurs this year. Those two teams can probably set a standing date in the Western Conference Finals for the next couple of years at least. So how do you punch up to try to compete with them? Because right now you're not in their league.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get to our team momentarily, but think about that for a second. I got a kind of a somewhat sarcastic text during the break. Hey, Nordo, I think the only chance the Wolves have to get past the second round anytime soon is to get moved to the Eastern Conference. Are we going to get to that spot, Chris, where we start hoping that Adam Silver puts us in the East? Although what the Knicks are doing, how about those Cavs crushing Detroit? Detroit themselves is no slouch. I don't, but the dominance of the young kids and what they have put together in San Antonio is impressive and literally daunting. Looking up at Wemby, and we just got through a year ago what we were looking forward to or not looking forward to with the Thunder. It does feel in some respects there's a helpless nature to this as a Wolves rube like I am, Chris, where it is going to be the Spurs and the Thunder for the years to come.
Yeah, I think it's a helpless nature for the entire Western Conference, to be honest with you. I wrote this the other day, but the Wolves can, I think, honestly say that they were the third best team in the Western Conference this year. But where does that get you? It gets you exactly where you are. And it's just it seems like such a tough uphill climb, especially when, you're a team that doesn't have a ton of assets in terms of draft capital to trade. We assume they're going to be in on the Giannis sweepstakes coming up here in the next month. And, but they're going to have to trade from their players if they're going to make that move happen.
Yeah.
So then you're retooling the roster and everything that goes along with that. I do think, I wrote this too, the front court, they have to look long and hard at the Randall Gobert pairing in the starting lineup, I think, for the foreseeable future as well, because I just don't think that works well offensively in a playoff series against the type of defense the Thunder and the Spurs play.
Yeah.
It works well. Like they play well enough to beat 90% of the teams in the league, right? And it's a very good basketball team. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to be competitive with the Thunder, with the Spurs, to compete for championships, I think what you have right now is just not going to get it done, and you have to figure out a way. What do you need? You need more of a dynamic point guard to play alongside of Ant. How do you go get that player? There's not a lot of those kind of players out there. But figuring it out, trying to find a deal out there, that's what Tim Connolly does best, I think, as a GM. You may not think a deal is out there or coming, but he'll find it. And so that's where I think, heading into this off season, that's one strength that the Wolves have is his ability to make deals.
Yeah, and he's going to have to make one or two this summer for sure. And that's whether it's the hockey team last week, it's the hoops team now. I mean, you got a couple of decision makers that are going to be potentially big game hunting and maybe taking some swings. Now, Chris, you mentioned Julius Randle, and I'm not trying to be a Julius Randle apologist by any stretch. I think in a vacuum he had a hideous series against the Spurs. However, this kind of weaves in your article a bit where I was watching a lot of spots, just the discombobulation of the offense kept putting Randle in spots where it was super late in the shot clock. He's taking bad shots. He's put in spots where he's trying to back his way down to the hoop versus going forward with his strength. And again, in a vacuum, I think it was a pretty bad series for Randall. But I also think this kind of ties into that lineup conversation, the dominant point guard conversation, and some things out of Julius's control that led maybe to some of the issues we saw.
Yeah, I just think, that starting lineup in this series against the Spurs, they were just starting from a hole every time with that lineup, with Randall and Gobert on the floor. Not a lot of pressure off of Ant in terms of ball handling. So when Julius would get the ball in the offense, it just wasn't in advantageous positions. Wemby could just kind of roam wherever he was. And, they didn't have Dante DiVincenzo there to kick out for 3-point shots either, which I think they sorely missed in that series as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I agree with you. Again, I look at Randall and Gobert, and I say that's good enough to beat 90% of the teams in the league, just not the two that beat you the last two postseasons here. It was a tough series for Julius, no doubt. It was a tough postseason. Last postseason was the best of his career. So going into this one, what do you do? Because the offense did hum when Gobert was off the floor with Randall. They got better shots, seemingly, and Julius was a part of that spacing and that shot creation. Throughout the course of the regular season, when Gobert was off the floor and it was Naz Reid and Julius Randle, the defense suffered, but the offense executed at a really high rate for most of the season, and it outweighed their problems defensively. So I think more globally, you have a decision as a front office of, do we lean more into keeping Rudy Gobert and keeping the defensive identity that this team has formed over the last few years? Or do you try to lean into a more open offensive identity, maybe go a little bit smaller, lean on Johan Berenger to sink or swim in his second year as a rim protector, and really just try to improve the offense and make that more dynamic going forward, because maybe that's what you need to beat Oklahoma City and San Antonio, instead of kind of a very rigid starting lineup that is maybe limited in its upside offensively.
What did you think of how Chris Finch handled this season? From early decisions, we're going with Dante in the starting lineup, to kind of the way I've framed it up, Chris. This is a consistently inconsistent team, and maybe there's the mental makeup part of that too. How did you think that Finchy handled this season?
I think it was a really tough spot eventually as the season wore on. If reading my piece, I think you get the idea that there's a lot of moodiness in the locker room, that guys care about their points, they care about their rebounds. And I think one of the things about NBA coaching is managing those personalities, managing those egos, and trying to get everybody pulling in the same direction, even when there might be, guys are upset over playing time or scoring or whatnot. And I think overall, to keep everything together and get to the playoffs and win a playoff series against Denver, I think it was overall a good job in that way.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at one thing to pick, it's a very common refrain with Finch and this team as a whole is the development of the young talent and the playing time given to them. Rob Dillingham didn't work out here, but they pivoted at the trade deadline to go get Ayo Dosunmu. TJ Shannon, that was an up and down experience as well. They came into the season thinking he was going to be playing a big role, and I will remind people online that we're asking for more TJ Shannon, that he was in the rotation from day one.
Yep.
And he was getting pretty heavy minutes early in the season, and then a foot injury kind of derailed his season, and it wasn't until later that he got back in it. And fans want to see a little more of Johan Berenger. I think I did too at times, just to see what he had, and maybe if that made you a little more flexible and dynamic in lineups and things like that. So, but overall, look, they won a playoff series shorthanded without their best player on the floor and another starter out. I think when that happens, that's a credit to the coach and the coaching staff overall for getting everybody, on the same page, buying in, all that stuff. That doesn't happen without establishing at least a little bit of a winning culture beforehand.
Yeah, and it's I love the way that you laid that out, but still, I mean, just an interesting, tricky way to I guess find the final perspective or find the final right answer, because you lay out the story of an imperfect coach and valid criticism about the development of some of the young talent. And thank you for clarifying Shannon Jr. and the fact that he was hurt and had to work his way back. But to that end, the moodiness and the consistent inconsistency of the roster, you can't fire the players. There's always that conversation when you're looking for changes, but that feels like that's something I would attack first this summer, is finding the right mix to move your way up the Western Conference charts.
Yeah, and that's, that to me is, having some conversations internally with players, who wants to be here, who is more concerned about their numbers on a given night, right? I think Tim Connolly has generally been pretty good about kind of filtering in and out guys that are about the right things or the wrong things. That's one thing that he has prioritized throughout his career in Denver and here in Minnesota. Is if guys are about the wrong things, they're usually not on a team that Tim Connolly is running. So I think we'll see where those kind of conversations end up at the end of the summer and how that affects trade deals. That being said, if Giannis is on the table, I expect the Wolves to be, and he wants to come here, which is a big factor in those negotiations where Giannis ultimately wants to be. I expect everything to be on the table when it comes to that.
Well, I'm glad. And this is Christopher Hine via X, covers the Minnesota Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. Terrific work that he did all season long, and a great help on a few occasions to 9 to noon as well. I was gonna ask you about that, just the draw that Minnesota has or doesn't have, and that does play a massive part in those sorts of conversations. So Giannis would be interested in playing with Anthony Edwards. I'm just curious. We had this talk at the trade deadline, Chris. It's like, okay, you want to go get Giannis, that's sweet. But whether it's draft picks that it doesn't feel like we have a ton of, or depth, which this team is trying desperately to build, all of that goes bye-bye, but you got the Greek Freak. Would it be similar this summer where cupboards are going to be bare, and it is going to be Berenger and some of these young cats getting some of that time that fans have been begging for them to get and haven't gotten as much as they want under Chris Finch, but you're going to have Ant and Giannis. Is that what we'd be looking forward to if something happens in that regard?
It does feel like it would be like, get Giannis in here and we'll figure out the rest later, right? But again, a big factor in this is, what does Giannis want? Because he's in the last year of his deal. So basically, he can tell teams like, you can trade for me if you want, but I'm not going to re-sign with you. And he can really affect the market in that way. So we'll see what he desires. The reports were that back at the deadline that he was interested in playing with Anthony Edwards long term. You hear rumblings that maybe he doesn't want to move to the Western Conference. Maybe he wants to stay in the East where it's a little easier path to the finals, right? Yeah. We'll see. There's always a lot of smoke around these kind of things, and quite honestly, as somebody that's watched the Giannis drama in Milwaukee for a number of years, I can't wait till there's finally a resolution of that thing.
Yeah, same here. And I'm kind of asking Giannis, can you take us to the East with you, Giannis? That would be nice. Easier path to the finals. What's Ant's health looking like into the postseason with the bulky knee? Then he has the hyperextension. Are we, maybe over the next few weeks of rehab and stuff, and certainly some extended chill time, that we can anticipate Ant's going to be full go, full speed ahead in the fall, that this won't linger?
I don't think it's going to linger into the fall, but what I do wonder about is just how it will affect his summer and the off-season work that he traditionally does. One thing about Anthony Edwards' career that's been a constant is every summer he goes back into the gym, works out really hard, and usually adds or really improves something in his game. 2 years ago, he really improved his three-point shooting. Last season, he added the mid-range post-up game, which really helped him in fourth quarter and clutch situations. This is something that he's done throughout his career, is always kind of adding or really improving an aspect of his game. So is he going to be able to put in the kind of work that's necessary to do that again with a facet of his game this offseason? When we asked him after Game 6 what that might be, he said he wasn't sure yet. And, just a big focus of the immediate offseason for him is just resting and recuperating and rehabilitation, which is obvious.
Yeah.
So I don't anticipate him, not being ready for training camp next season. I just do wonder how it's going to affect how he works this offseason.
Io DeSumo, we do acquire him. Rob Dillingham, best of luck in future endeavors. Welcome, Io. You think he would be somebody? I don't know. I'm not asking you like for dollar or anything, but he's somebody that Connolly would be efforting to keep here with the Howl, correct?
Yeah, and Connolly said as much when they traded for him. Said that they traded for him not for a rental, and that he was a part of their long-term plans here. So I would expect something to get done there. If you're talking dollar amount, a lot of teams throughout the league are hamstrung by the aprons and all that stuff, and they can only give out like a mid-level exception type of contract, which is like around $15 million. I don't know what the exact number is. But it's around that range per year. So the Wolves are looking at probably something like that, maybe go a little bit above it just to keep him here, and not have another team try to entice him to come to them. The Wolves can sign him for above the mid-level because they have his bird rights.
Okay.
So he can re-sign with the Wolves for higher than the mid-level exception, which is, one of the great advantages that they have against any other team that may be looking to sign him.
Well, I appreciate you laying that out so plainly, Chris, because I feel like sometimes with bird rights and aprons that I need freaking KPMG to
listen, I'm still wrapping my head around everything. This trade deadline, I was learning a couple things about the CBA that I didn't know existed, so it takes a lot of greed to understand that thing, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, with that said, and it stinks our favorite team's not in the mix, there's something about this OKC Spurs series that is just unbelievable from top to bottom. We sadly got to see Dylan Harper rising to the occasion before our eyes. Stephon Castle, the young talent they have with the unicorn in Wemby, against the juggernaut in OKC. Any big spot opinions as you look forward to now? Sadly, our offseason begins, but getting to kind of sit on the couch and watch these two teams go at it.
It's going to be great. I'm very much looking forward to watching this series. I think it's going to be a 6 or 7 gamer. I would tend to favor Oklahoma City just a little bit, just because I think they are so comfortable in what they do and who they are and what their identity is. And they're so versatile roster-wise as well. They can hit you from any position. Any guy can have a big night. I mean, the emergence of AJ Mitchell just has to have GMs around the league going like, how did this happen?
Oh yeah.
It's unreal what they've done and how they've overcome injuries this year, and they just keep finding and plugging in talent. It's really impressive, and if you're a hater of them, it's infuriating. But I expect it to be a heck of a series, but I would give the slight edge to the Thunder if I was kind of handicapping it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for the time you gave me this morning. Really appreciate the great work you do for the Strib, and we'll continue to follow your work, and we'll see some big swings and some moves happening this summer with the Howl, man. Thanks again.
No problem. Anytime. Appreciate you having me.
That's Chris Hine, beat writer, Star Tribune for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Follow him at Christopher Hine via X. And really, really good piece. And part of the reason I wanted to have him on, not just kind of putting the season to bed, but just, matching the imperfect coach, the moodiness of the team, and kind of laying out a story about a group of guys who really, really like each other. They're buds, but maybe they hate playing together. and just kind of the odd, just as I've laid it out 100 times, the consistent inconsistency of our favorite basketball team. And whether they had DiVincenzo or not, what we're about to watch with San Antonio and Oklahoma City, definitely leaving a helpless feeling for me as a Wolves fan, maybe for you, the listener, as well, in terms of what this team is up against in the coming years, from an Oklahoma City team that not only has 1 million draft picks, apparently hits on all of them, and only continues to get stronger and deeper. And then what we're watching with this Spurs team, how just so fast, just you get the pick with Wemby, and then from Castle to Dylan Harper, what they're building around him is so impressive as well. So tough times. And maybe that texter was right. The only way we're going to move on from the second round is if Silver moves us to the Eastern Conference. Cross your fingers. Your talkbacks and some texts around the corner. We're going to jump full in. Again, heavy on the howl today. Parker Fox is going to be in studio around 10. Lavelle, the columnist, really potpourri style around 11 o'clock. But keep those texts, 64686 coming, and talkbacks, free iHeartRadio app. Will play those throughout the show as well. It's Nordo in for PA, Brett Blakemore producing. It's The Fan.
You're listening to Nordo in for PA on The Fan.
Chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. It's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. To enter keywords to learn more, head to KFAN.com. Bonus Box is presented by BigDeck.com.
See, someone's on my side, Brett. Como Park Garage guy. Riddle me this. How do they rush the Wild into Colorado series? Vegas wins Thursday. They don't start Vegas, Colorado until Wednesday, 6 days off. Can we get some bleeping consistency here? Thank you. Como Park Garage guy. I guess at least now there's two of us that are, for some reason, our favorite team's not in it anyway. It's all gone. We could have had Eck and Brodeen and still could have lost in 6. But all the same, we were up 3-0, Brett. So I got a text. You're not, all you Packer fans are insidious, and you've infiltrated our Vikings loving community. And I have so many people in my life that I love that just happen to love the green and gold.
Yeah, we're an invasive species.
And
That's right.
Indeed you are. I got this text from Eastsider. The stakes were significantly higher, but the Wild collapse can be put on the same level as the 2014 NFC Championship game, Packers and Seahawks. What do you think?
I think that's a little dramatic. That was
it Brandon Bostic?
Bostic. Ugh.
With the
yeah, it was an onside kick. I mean, there's 1,000 stories of, I know, like Double T already texted Sinekin, congrats on going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
My mom, because I was a kid when this happened, I was, 15, 14?
It's okay to admit you cried.
Oh, well, it was devastating. Well, she's like, why are we even nervous? You've won the game. You're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, and that happened. So, yeah, but it's fine. Don't tell Dan Minnesota that we have heartbreak as well.
Takes a little Vikings fan mentality.
No,
kind of work your way through that.
The Wild, it did stink that it was, but I mean, if you watched the rest of the series, you knew that the Wild probably weren't long for this world after, especially after Game 4.
They still needed to get through Friday.
Yeah.
And then if they get through that, it's back to the mile high for Game 7.
Yeah.
First time in like 17 or 18 years the Avs clinched a series on home ice. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Up 3-0. Seven shots the rest of regulation and overtime.
You can't explain it.
7 shots on net.
Yeah. It's like they ran out of gas, they got sloppy, and but even
I don't want to relive that.
Even 3 minutes left, they had a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, they did.
Ugh, man.
The best player on earth. You give him an extra half second. Just adjust, pick his spot, collect his thoughts. That's like an hour to me or you. A half second of not pressuring Nathan McKinnon. And he picked, just barely enough. It was a slot that was built for a puck, and he fit it right in there. It was beautiful.
It was.
And crushing.
Yep.
All at the same time. And
they teach defensemen, if it's a 2-on-1, you play the pass, and the shot is the goaltender's responsibility. But then you got to count that that's also Nathan McKinnon that's shooting the puck. So it's rocking a hard place for, I think it was Middleton.
Yeah,
that situation.
So just in summation, I totally agree that the 2014 NFC Championship game, Packers and Seahawks, Packers have it won until they don't.
Who Common says the greatest game in Vikings history.
Gosh, who was that Jermaine Kearse over the middle with the catch, the game-winning TD?
Ugh.
It's like a 35-yard pass.
I mean, you could list NFC Championship game heartbreaks, but so they all blend together at this point. But I remember the onside kick the most, and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and Brandon Bostic. Yeah. With that said, that was way worse than the Wild losing, albeit in a terrible manner. But they'll be able to wash this one clean. And I think we're efforting. We will get head coach John Hines on at some point later this week, potentially Thursday when PA's back in studio. We'll hear from the head coach, and again, just kind of close the book on that. That's what it's amazing how quickly these seasons end, where we go. I mean, every night, dude. Every night it was awesome. We were complaining about how late the puck drop or the tip-off was, but we were getting every other night one of our favorite teams battling. And it's over in an instant. Talkback machine.
What up, Nordo? What's up, Blakemore in the background? Charles from the STP. Oh, man, the howl. Gone fishing. I thought we had what it took to get to the finals. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, Randall stopped showing up to play.
Yeah.
Then he didn't even want to do the interview after the season was over. Anyways, man, don't let the door hit you, man. Just took 100-piece from us. We'll see you later, man. Randall, I think Reed might be out too. Kyrie Irving, Darius Garland, Josh Giddey. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it hurts my voice. Hurts my voice to do that. Yeah, Julia, the reason that I wanted to, and I'll get into this with Parker as well, is Chris Hine writes a piece talking about, and you should read it in the Star Tribune, but I loved how he weaved in, particular on a Monday, putting the season to bed. I love that he weaved in kind of the decision to start Dante from minute one, the lack of a true point guard in a spot, which kind of changed the way that Anthony Edwards had to play for a balance of the season, the inability to really find an answer to that, even at the deadline. And we like Io, but that wasn't the answer, and how that impacted things over the course of the season. But with Randall was awful in this series. And I thought Hine did a great job last segment of kind of, pairing him up with Rudy and why that's bad against the Spurs in particular. And I've seen a couple of texts coming in too, kind of the idea an athletic, young, active Berenger maybe makes that whole thing look a little bit different. We could say that. But to that end with Randall, I thought in a lot of cases, frustrating as he was, the turnovers were just inexcusable. But he was also put in some hideous spots. It reminds me of my 11-year-olds playing soccer, where a lot of it doesn't make sense at times, and it's chaotic. It's just like a swarm of locusts, and we're asking them to space out. But in some cases, they're just passing not because that makes sense in that spot. They actually put their teammate in a terrible spot. But it's almost like hot potato. Just get rid of it. I don't want to be the person that makes the big mistake. And that, in some ways, on a different level, of course, that's how the Wolves offensively looked at times during this series. And even, you can take it and zoom out to the postseason in general, where it was dribble down, one pass, shot. Dribble down, no passes, shot early in the shot clock. Dribble down, try to find some fluidity, making the extra passes. But then there's 5-6 seconds left in the clock. And now Randall's having to back his way into the hoop. Not going to work against Wemby. Not going to work against these 50 guards the Spurs have, who just swarm down on you, take that freaking lunch money away, and head the other way with one of the better transition offenses in the NBA. Randall was bad in this series, but he was also put in some terrible spots by a completely disorganized, completely discombobulated offense. And the lack of a guard plays into that. So the on-court situations that led to issues, the off-court, the moodiness, the consistent inconsistency of this team, just paint just a pretty brutal picture of what this thing could look like moving forward. But also it leaves me at the end of a season putting this thing to bed on a Monday morning thinking, how in the hell did they win a series? How in the hell were they a 50-win team? And how much better it could have been, but in some ways, just kind of tipping my cap to the coach for some things, scratching my head with other things. But in one thing in particular, keeping this train on the tracks as long as Finchy did, for me, is impressive. And I would like to continue hearing from you as well. Free iHeartRadio app, hit those talkbacks, text messages 64686. We're going to continue the conversation as we jump into the second hour with Parker Fox. It's Nordo in for PA, Brett Blakemore by my side. It's The Fan.
It's Eric Nordquist in for